People will do deals with them where they'll take up to 50% of the grant proceed on the back end. So you pay them a fee on the front end and you pay them on the back end. So you thought you were going to get $100,000. You end up with, like, by the time you factor in their $25,000 upfront fee, then they're going to take 25 or 50% on the back end. You can end up with 25 grand out of that bad boy.
It's a Titan Tail time. And today, this is Chris G, and I'm going to share something with you. You guys are in for a treat. Now, it's a treat in the fact that what you get back after this discussion, but sometimes we don't like talking about taxes. But I think you're going to like this discussion today on how to get some money back and some free money as well. So, got a friend here. He's all the way down south of me in Arkansas. Please help me welcome Benjamin Bressington.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Good, Ben. Welcome. Can you share a
Thank
little
you.
bit about yourself before we get going into the tax thing?
Yeah, so as you can tell, I've got one of those funny South Boston accents, right? So it's just a little south of the Bronx. But
Yeah.
for the people who do understand that, that was a joke. I am actually Australian, and you might be like, well, what on earth is an Australian talking to me about US tax stuff, right?
Right.
So I moved here back in 2010, right?
Okay.
And I got into the entrepreneurial spirit, right? I came over here, came under to do some business stuff, and even back then, I didn't understand the ramification of tax issues, right? Because I'm like, you know what? When you're hustling and you're grinding and you're fighting for that dream, right? You go, I'll deal with this stuff later, right? And I can remember that back in the early days, I got laughed at when I went to some tax firms for some IRS issues, and that's kind of my origin story there. But I started doing all of this because I got a criminology degree and a law degree. I studied psychology, and for about the last 20 odd years, I've been applying automation and gamification to companies around the world. So I build AI sales systems for med tech companies, and that's what I kind of do as what I've been doing for the last few years. But then I really got into the IRS financial services space over the last 2 years, just because of how fundamentally messed up some things are. And it's just like, it doesn't have to be this damn hard. Even trying to get advice from people at times, just like everyone's got a different bloody answer. And that kind of drive me crazy. If that makes sense?
It does. Now, on a Titan's Tale, we like to talk about a little history, how you got over there. So, before we started, you told me you've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. Is this what you started out with, or did you start some other businesses?
So I've always been in the world of e-commerce. I literally started getting into e-commerce, selling stuff online back in 2000. I would actually fly over to Hong Kong from Australia. I'd go to a trade show. I would find knickknacks, products, you name it. I really didn't care at that point in time. All I cared about is I had a credit card that had a $2,500 limit, right? So what that meant is I had $2,000 to spend because I had to cover my airfares and travel, right? And then I had to make that money back by the time within 30 days, by the time I had to pay the credit card statement, right? So I started selling stuff online and dealing with all that type of stuff. And this was back in the days of Yahoo stores. Most people may not even remember that, but like that was the only way you could really sell online was like a Yahoo store. And that was a challenge and a half. But really, nothing's really changed in the world of selling online. It's still the same process. So I've always been doing that. I started doing uh, helping people sell online, building courses and publishing books and publishing information marketing and then growing and scaling their businesses. So kind of applying that world of e-myth to people's business, that type of system
Hmm.
type stuff.
Yep.
And it's just always evolved. Like I've always been doing it myself. I've been helping a few others along the way, but now we're really focusing in on like we are our only client. My company is our only client, and we provide solve a real problem for a lot of people. And we're on a mission to help 1 million people a year solve their tax issues.
Well, good. So, when the first thing come to my mind when Ben and I had a meeting there before we started, and it's not a political show by no means, but when Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton did some debating, and Donald said that the tax IRS is geared towards businesses, and made some other comments. And Hillary said that's basically not right, but I'm summarizing. But so I asked Donald, "How do you know?" And he said, "Because I use it." And I'm hoping that today we're going to talk about some of that use it stuff that's available to everybody else if they just knew about it and how to get to it. Would that be a safe assumption?
Yeah, that's a great assumption because it's a game a lot of people don't know how to play. And unfortunately, they try to learn how to play the game too late. And I'm not talking about tax strategies now. I'm not talking
No, no,
about
no, no.
tax planning stuff. I'm
Yep.
not talking about any of that. I'm talking about how do we deal with the consequences of the IRS has happened? Or how do we make an amendment to something that's been filed within the last 3 years? Because I talk to hundreds of accountants like every week, right? And they're using some software package, and nothing against accountants, but the software they use is usually really, really complicated, and the tax code is so diverse. Like they've only got so much time to spend with every client. And unless you've got an accountant who is full time for you, they can't understand every molecule of the IRS game. It's just impossible.
Hmm.
Like, can I give you an example? Is that all right, Chris?
Absolutely. That's what we like here.
So we were talking to an accountant today, all right? And this is for any of the entrepreneurs who are renovating. So here's the secret: if you renovate any type of retail space, commercial space, right? Let's say, as part of my business, I've gone and renovated my $1 million restaurant. So I've put $1 million, which nowadays ain't much for a restaurant, right? But we know the hard truth is that restaurant could be out of business in 5 years, right? So they put their $1 million in to make it all look pretty. They got all the renovations and all that type of stuff. Most accountants will depreciate that $1 million over 39 years,
Hmm.
right? So this is kind of standard practice in the business. Let's depreciate that over 39 years. So I ask you some questions about that because, like, if you're depreciating your $1 million over 39 years and your restaurant fails in 3, how do you continue to claim that depreciation? How do you continue to claim the rest of that that goes with that if the whole company you had that did this investment closes down? Right? Like, so
Right.
you may be saying goodbye to $100,000 or more in possible deductions, right?
Right.
However, however, there is this thing called safe harbor. And if you tick one checkbox on one PDF, it allows you to claim that $1 million deduction in the first year. So I'll say that again, just for people that say they're like, say that again, like you funny talking Australian. So the thing is that there's this thing called safe harbor, and if you tick one checkbox on one specific PDF, right? And I was talking to an accountant today, and he goes, I didn't even realize that was an option in my software to even detect this for my client. Because in the software they use, he can do it, but he didn't even know what it applied to. So he's got all these clients who he's depreciating their assets over 39 years instead of getting that $1 million deduction in year one. Because let me ask you this question. If you had a possible $1 million deduction because of an investment you made in your business, and you were able to claim it in the first year of that reference in that business operation, how could that possibly impact your taxes for year one, but let alone possibly your taxes for year 2 and year 3?
That was going to be my question. Does it carry? Because a lot of people don't make enough in the first year to write off that total million in your example.
Exactly.
Or
So it would
are you
carry
allowed to
through.
carry it over? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, in year 2 or year 3, you've still got this rollover, right? Because that's
Hmm.
still standard practice. But the thing
Yep.
is, instead of you depreciating it over 39 years, which is only a little bit each year, right? You've now got $1 million that's rolled over that you can now use, which may mean that the scary tax bill that you're going to have in year 2, because you're now profitable from the investment that you've had, you're gaining a benefit from. And it could be the difference between does that commercial property you've done this renovation to help you stay alive and survive in the market? Because there's a lot of things that send people sideways. Medical expenses and tax bills are the two of those main things, right? Because
All right.
when, like, I'll give you another example if that's right, Chris. So
Yep.
a lot of people who are 1099 independent contractors or entrepreneurs doing the side hustle, you may have a few people who are like, hey, I'm side hustling and I'm doing all this type of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
They may not realize at the end of the year that what they've got to pay taxes on. But because you're a 1099 independent contractor and you may have been doing Uber, Lyft, gig work, any of this type of side hustle work, where you think that you're getting all that money. But what you don't realize is that company you work for has declared you as an expense to the IRS. They've reported to the IRS through the 1099 what they've paid you. So you need to be aware of that. And if you declare that correctly, there's grants, incentives, and programs available for you that you may not be aware of, and that most accountants aren't even aware of. I'll give you one that expires before in April next year. So this is April 2025. So if you're smart, you can apply for it. If you're an independent contractor or a 1099 who is impacted by COVID, you can literally get up to $32,000 in cash or tax credits. $32,000 in tax or tax credit if you, and all you have to do is file an amendment. And this is one of the things we actually automated and did for a lot of our clients. We've done over 30,000 of them this year. All right. And here's the thing. Even if you owe the IRS money, they will give you that cash back. Here's the disclaimer, if you've got an installment plan set up. And what I mean by an installment plan, for those who don't know, is an installment plan is the way that you can settle with the IRS. And there's multiple ways that you can have them pay. You can pay less of your tax bill. So if you've got, say, a $30,000 tax bill, they may settle a tax bill for $4,000. Hypothetically speaking, I'm not your accountant. I have to do all that type of stuff, right? But the
Sure.
thing is would you rather pay the IRS $30,000 in cash or $4,000? And if you've got an installment plan, that means you're paying that $4,000 debt off over a period of time, and that's okay. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So a 1099 person, but he has to have had some issues in 2020. Is that right? So he had to be in business in
Yep.
2020 as well.
Yeah. So 2020 or 2021, and here's the little secret. Here's what most accountants don't even know: is that, let's say in 2020 your income was greater, right? Because you're impacted in 21, right? You can actually take your income from 20 and apply it to the benefit of this credit in 21, so you can increase your credit threshold. It's $32,000 if you've got family and kids who are also impacted. But you as an individual may only be, if you're a single person, no kids, that type of stuff, you may be available for up to $7,000. But that's still $7,000 of benefit that if you were operating in 21, that you can file an amendment for and claim.
Go back to your restaurant renovation example.
Mm-hmm.
Is that $1 million distributed based on the amount of money you make each year? So, for example, if you're writing off, you have $1 million banked as being able to write it off, and you make 200,000 this year. I can write off 200,000 from that $1 million expense, and then roll over the 800,000, and then keep on going. Or
Hypothetically
is there a
speaking,
certain?
of course. Yeah,
Okay,
that comes
yeah,
down to then
hypothetically,
that
we are
comes
not
down to
accountants.
your.
We're not
Yeah,
lawyers. We're not
we're
agents.
not
We're
the
not
IRS.
anything. We're just two guys talking on the phone. Or, excuse me.
About how it's possible to play this game and win, right? So
Correct.
the
That's
thing
right.
is yeah. So then that comes down to the strategy you're applying. Like, you can take off if you've only got a $200,000 this year, and you're gonna carry that loss, that depreciation forward. Right? You can do that. That's part of a tax strategy, right? But the thing is most people even miss the advantage of that $1 million deduction because they're going to depreciate it over 39 years. But
Correct.
here's the thing. Any renovation or upgrades that you do that you can classify under this renovation for on any commercial property allow you to have this incentive. So would you rather depreciate it over an extended period of time, or possibly have the rollover benefit from year one of deployment? And when you're talking about profitability for a business, because we all think, oh my God, I earned in my restaurant $200,000 this year. But it's not about what you earn, it's about what you keep. And this is that game. And like most entrepreneurs, right, who they're like, hey, I'm going to go start making some money. You start making some money and you think you're going to go buy that new mansion, right? Because you're earning the money now. You're a high roller, right? But did you know that if you owe the IRS money within the last 10 years and you've got you have a tax bill owing, you won't be approved for a mortgage. You won't be able to refinance.
I thought it was forever on the tax
No,
side, but no, 10 years,
no.
still bad
So
enough.
the
I
thing,
mean,
yeah, it's still bad enough. So here's the problem. You may have perfect credit. You may have now have all that income. You've got those cash. You've got your 20% deposit. You're just rolling in it, right? Because your business is killing it, right?
mhm.
But because you have a tax debt to the IRS, you may be declined for your financing, which then becomes a financing deal bottleneck. So here's the thing. If you set up an installment plan, you got it operational. And this is the thing, you can do it yourself, right? And we've built a system that actually allows people to do it themselves without the complications. We've had it verified and validated by former IRS agents because it's exactly what they do for their clients. We make it cost effective for people nowadays so they don't have to pay these stupid fees, right? Now you get approved for that mortgage. You get approved for that loan. It doesn't have to be scary. And that's as part of the power of knowing how to play this game. Right? Because there's 20 million people a year, every single year, that owe the IRS money. And supposedly 93% of them owe less than $50,000. Right? You may get rejected for a mortgage or a refinance because you owe the IRS 2 grand and it's been too scary, too hard to deal with. This is the reality of some of the people we talk to.
I believe that. You mentioned earlier grants. My ears pop up when I hear the word grants because that usually means free money compared to a what's the other word when they give it to you, but you got to owe it back. Not a loan, but what the
Well,
government
it's a
did.
debt owing of some sort, right?
Yeah, but grants,
Yep.
you don't have to pay those back to the government. What kind
Yep.
of programs are wrapped around that?
So we're actually just getting into that process. And one of the things we're doing is you're going to be able to answer a few questions with our new AI tools that we're creating, right? And there's over 20,000 different grants and subsidies that are available to people in the US right now, right? And I've got access to some lists of grants that could be upwards of as high as 200,000, right? This could be grants for $1,000 to $10 million, right? And
Hmm.
most people don't even know they exist, don't even know where to go to find them because it's hard. Let's be honest, it's hard as hell to go and find all this information. Let alone how the hell do you put together the application, the packet, because you can't. It's not one size fits all. Like
Well,
some some grants may be about the EPA impact that you have on cockroach beetles on the sand, right? So the
hmm
thing is how is what you're doing connected to whatever it is under the screen? But this is where the power of AI and the ability to understand and personalize content, like our goal. So let me tell you what our goal is. Our goal is that you answer a few questions using our tool. Our tool will go analyze every single grant that's available to somebody in the US, right?
yeah.
And then it'll come back and go, hey, I've got these grants that we can automatically apply for. And based on that, I need a few more questions from you. I need maybe some sample videos. I need your website URL. I need your social media URLs, blah, blah, blah. And it'll literally generate the report, the grant documents and forms for you. It'll tell you the deadlines on when to apply. And with one button, you'll be able to just go apply. And you can automatically apply to grants all the time. This is what we're working towards. And this is also what we're dealing with our IRS tools. That's why we call it the IRS form assistant. So you'll never have to worry about an IRS form ever again.
That is quite impressive because several years ago, I'm a member of a 501c3, actually the president of the board, and we looked at some grants and we found some grants. But then you got all that paperwork you got to fill out. And those weren't even government grants, those were individual grants. And I didn't want to touch the government with a 10-foot pole. Just that just seemed too much. So I'm quite intrigued by this because those are really handy for smaller communities like I'm in that,
Yeah.
and we've had a lot of people donate, but we got a little bit more of a hump. And if there's something that can help the community and it's free and it's legal, more power to
Yeah.
us. Um,
And well, one of the big elements of that is even security compliant, right? And
yeah,
because of some of my background where I used to do a whole bunch of stuff in the world of cybersecurity, we are even helping people meet those security thresholds. So implement and and generate all the elements for that so they can fully meet it. So it's like, hey, so when you go and pitch yourself or explain why you deserve this grant, you've got every piece of justification all there. And it's like having a grant writer on staff, but you pay pennies on the dollar rather than paying $75 to $500 an hour for people to write grants for you. It's big money. And some of these grant writers, I don't know if you've seen it, but they can take, people will do deals with them where they'll take up to 50% of the grant proceed on the back end. So you pay them a fee on the front end and you pay them on the back end. So you thought you're going to get $100,000. You end up with, like, by the time you factor in their $25,000 upfront fee, then they're going to take 25 or 50% on the back end. You can end up with 25 grand out of that bad boy.
Well, I'm also on the school board, and we were fortunate enough to have a teacher that was very talented at writing grants for the school. That is, it wasn't like, and she might do it for her own side stuff, but there's a certain way you got to write it, certain answers. Now, this has been 10, 15 years ago, and this seems like what you're offering are very intriguing. Actually, it's a really good thought for using AI to get through all the red tape. And,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and like there's even submission problem, right? Like, so
yeah,
we built a whole bunch of these tools, right? There's some forms we had to fax to the IRS because that was the only way they'd receive them. You know how
yeah,
hard it is to get people to fax some stuff nowadays? Because, like, who's still got a fax machine?
who's got a
right?
fax machine? Exactly.
And we realized that one of the things we had to do for our clients, right, was we actually set up a system where we would generate all of the documents for you online. You would then pay the postage, and what would happen is that we would send you the document packet to your house. We'd mail it to you so you can print and sign. And then in that document packet is the return addressed envelopes, already stamped, already labeled, already everything. So you just go and drop that bad boy in at a mailbox, and then it goes to the IRS. So, like, we're going through those processes of how do we make it so easy for you? Because when we first started this, we were having clients who were getting them these credits, right? And some of them were $30,000, right? And they were sitting in their car on the dash of their car for like a month and a half because they're like, oh yeah, I just haven't gone to the post office because I've got to go in and I've got to go get a
Get
stamp and I've got to go
certified,
get a label.
yeah.
It just like it's there on a to-do list, even though it's like they had a check for like 30 grand sitting on their dashboard that they weren't cashing, right? Just because we're all busy people.
I lost my train of thought because you said something important and I forgot what it was. Oh, you said IRS. I didn't really ever think about it. So when you apply for a government grant, that is, or anything from the government as far as financial, does it go to IRS or does it go to another
No, well,
department?
you got to declare those things. But so we've been heavily focused on grants and so credits and tax incentives that were IRS based, right? That's where we started, and we started building all those systems. And because we had to deal with all these complexities of dealing with an organization that's very confusing, very legacy, and not the most friendly, right? We've now been approached by a lot of people to expand into grants, private grants, business grants, government grants, blah, 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 you name it. And the advantage we have is because of the systems we put in place for dealing with the IRS, some of the things you need for these grants is IRS paperwork. You need tax returns. You may need letters or endorsements, or you may need to show that you don't owe money to the IRS, because what they don't want is they don't want to give you a grant for 50 grand and it goes to pay a tax bill for whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So like they want to make sure the deployment of your funds is actually going to where you say it, because a lot of people have done this
for that. That's a good idea. No, there's nothing wrong with that.
So and they also want to make sure that like you've got your house in order, right? So this is one of the things, that's why it's going to be a real advantage for us, because we handle and can help people clean up all the stuff on the IRS. Like, I'll give you another example, right? So let's say you've got a tax debt owing. Let's say you owe $50,000 to the IRS, right? And what most people don't realize is there is a form process, which is the removal of penalties and the abatement of penalties, which is just removal of penalties. So you submit one form. And what most people don't realize is you'll get a bill from the IRS saying you owe 3 grand, 5 grand, whatever it is. And then next time you get a letter, right, says you owe $15,000, or it says you owe $20,000, or it's $40,000, right? Because what they do is they put all the penalties and the interest for that on the first year, on the first time. What penalties and abatement can help you do is actually remove all of that. This is how firms tell you we can settle your IRS debt for less. And what they aren't saying to you is we're going to fill in one PDF, answer a few questions, submit it to the IRS on your behalf, and you're going to pay us 20 grand for it.
I want to not necessarily change gears, but I want to talk about. I have had other guests on, and I love myself. I'm a landlord. Is there ways in the IRS to promote property development, property purchasing and renting? I know the government's really interested in keeping people housed. And is there anything like that there that incentivizes people like myself to make more investments in real estate?
Yeah, so I get asked these questions all the time, and I know we get a lot of real estate investors who are looking for us who may not fall under the commercial umbrella. And this is certainly one of the things we're starting to research, and we're starting to set up teams to actually deploy. So I don't know anything specifically as yet. I've been told that there's a lot of programs out there. And then once again, this also comes down to how you're structuring. Because what a lot of real estate agents or commercial developers or real estate investors may not realize is you've structured your business maybe for asset possible protection, but you haven't done it from a tax benefit or incentive program benefit as well. Because, well, what happened if you could get these rollover credits or these additional deductions or these additional incentives, but because of how you've structured your company or how you've structured these assets, or how you're declaring your income. We actually found that with a lot of people who were 1099, right, self-employed, the way their accountant or they were writing off their income, right, and how they were declaring their income literally made them not be able to qualify for some of these programs. So one of the things you want to start asking your financial advisors and your people around you is, what are my options? What are the programs that are available to me that may be worth me qualifying for, right? And you may only have to do it one time, 1 year, but then in that year, you can then qualify for certain programs, certain incentives, certain options that allow you to win this game. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So is that list of ideas or thoughts or is that available on your website, or is that something you guys sign up for, or how's that work?
We don't have that available as yet because it's all dependent on where the clients are at. We're working towards creating that because these are a lot of investors are always looking for new things, right? So we're actually going to be rolling out over the next few months some more programs focused on property developers, real estate investors, or people who are like residential landlord style investment programs. Because there is things there, but a lot of those requirements are also going to come down to assessing how have you structured yourself? And they've never really asked the question of, hey, what other options are available for me? Does that make sense?
That's more absolutely. I mean, I've got partnership LLCs, I've got sole proprietor or member management LLCs, I've got a corporation. Those are all different. And sometimes when I buy
they all get treated differently.
Yeah, and I get into different ventures, I might start a whole different entity just because of based on what I'm trying to achieve. We're going to get into how to contact you and your website stuff here a little bit. But before I go into that, so for my listeners, what would I need to have technology-wise to do what you're asking for? I mean, I know you had the internet, and I assume a computer. Do I need a scanner? You said I don't need a fax machine, but would I need a scanner?
No, you don't need any of that. You can literally take a photo of stuff on your phone nowadays. We even built our own identification verification system. But the reality is if you can access the internet, you can download and print a PDF and literally mail it to the IRS. And we're putting things in place to make it even easier for you. Like I was just talking to some of the new upgrades we're going to be rolling out. Literally, that if you've got a Staples or a FedEx nearby, you're literally going to be able to show up there. It's already going to be printed there, right? You just print it, and like they're going to put it in the label and mail it for you. Like, so it's just like some of our clients are like, hey, Ben, I actually don't have a printer. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have a printer? Go down to Staples, go down to like FedEx and like
I know.
pay them the $3 to print.
My daughters don't have printers. When they want something printed, they email Dad, "Hey, can you print this out?" Oh, that makes me death.
Yeah.
And then I bought him one for Christmas one time. Dad, I didn't want this for Christmas. Oh. Anyway, that's a whole other subject. But anyway, I know a
Yeah, but
lot of us.
this is the way of life, right? So it's just like, all right.
Yeah,
So, and
absolutely.
as a company for ourselves, it's like, okay, well, we hear from our clients and we try to make it as easy and effortless for our clients as possible, right? So
Right.
that's why it's like, hey, we'll print it, we'll mail it to you, we'll have all the labels all addressed for you, where you got to send it to you. You just sign it and mail. So the thing is at the end of the day, if you can get access to paper somehow, the system can be done for you. And a lot of
Sure.
the time, most people don't realize that you can make amendments for things going back 3 years. So if something applies to you this year, well, what if it applied for you last year and the year before as well?
And you thought you were ready to file, so it's too late,
Yeah,
but it's not necessarily.
because there's a whole amendment process. So a lot of the times that we're doing things for clients is we're literally filing an amendment to a tax return. But here's the thing:
Hmm.
if you didn't file, you may not qualify for it.
Yep.
So there is a benefit to filing taxes, but for most people who owe the IRS money and they might be listening to it, and the person may be listening to right now, and they're like, "Ben, I haven't actually filed." I'm like, that's okay. Don't worry about it. As part of getting back in good standing, you get reconciled and have your filings up to date. So that just becomes part of that process. And this is now why we even refer and recommend bookkeepers and all this type of stuff to help people get their stuff in good standing. And one of the things I just want to point out to people is you may not be aware of how much burden and stress you're actually carrying because you're owing the IRS money, because you haven't filed your finances and your finances aren't in good standing. Because when you are in good standing, there is a lot less stress. There's a lot less anxiety. And yeah, the IRS is actually starting to do scary things to get the money that they're entitled to. And most people don't even realize they can cancel passports.
About a couple months ago, I called. I have gone through my book to kind of make some room in my filing. So I called my accountant. I said, well, "How many years I got to hold this stuff for?" And they said, "Well, basically, it's 5." Like, okay, good. I get a couple of years. How far back can you go to amendments? You said 3, but I didn't know if you go 3 only. Okay.
Yeah, but you can negotiate and settle tax debts back further. And most tax debts. So I'll tell you another one. This impacts your property investors. Okay.
Hmm.
So there's properties that have a tax lien on them, right?
Hmm.
Or they have, or you're trying to refinance a property with a tax lien, right? What usually happens?
Never done one, so I don't know.
Most of the time, the deals fail because why would the deal fail? Because the doesn't want to be second to the IRS. If they're holding the mortgage, they want to be number one
Oh,
on
absolutely.
one first
Yeah.
place. So did you
Oh,
know?
because a tax lien takes precedence over everything,
Yeah,
typically. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm following you.
so what we can do is there's once again one piece of paper you can submit that asks the IRS, I am going through a refinance right now, or I'm buying a property right now, and I need that tax lien to go from position 1 to position 2, and they will do it for you. And then also the transaction that you were trying to close on,
Yeah.
right? Instead of it failing because the banks are like, well, I'm not going to take second position. I don't want to be second fiddle, right?
Not when I got first position already. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is now you can actually go through that process and literally have your tax lien move to position 2, and then as a result, you can actually close on a deal. And most people aren't aware of this stuff. And this now
Oh,
allows you to play a whole different game.
they can entertain that, but that's impressive right there.
And the thing is, there's 100 of these little things. And
Yeah.
that's why a lot of the people we partner with and gain insights from are former IRS agents, because they know how to play the game because they were the ones enforcing the game. But what we've learned is they know how to play a part of the game because they were like an IRS agent for a specific division, region,
Category.
type,
Yeah.
category of wherever you want to call it, right? So
Hmm.
this is why we're starting to partner with a whole bunch of these former IRS agents because they've all got different specialties. They all know of one stinking little checkbox on a 100 question form that if you tick it, It means this.
We know that we just got to talk about the fact that the government uses the post office, which understandably so. Do they allow for e-signing now? Or you mentioned several times print out, sign, and send. I don't know if you e-signature and print out and send, or is that even allowed with the government?
Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can now e-sign, right? But the problem
Mhm.
is it's how they accept the e-signature. They may only accept the e-signature if it's mailed, or they may only accept it if it's uploaded to their portal. They won't accept e-signature if it's faxed. So when in doubt, wet sign it, real pen, real paper, right? Which may be a pain in the ass for a few people because you know what? I don't know where my pen is, right? So if you got to go buy a pen because you'll prevent yourself delays and issues, right? And
Okay.
sometimes causing delays raises more questions.
Yep. I'm going to ask one silly question. It's not a silly question because back in the day it was important. When I got my broker's license and stuff, there was a discussion about the color of ink and that you should use blue. Is that still an issue today, or do you even know?
We have black
Doesn't
or
matter.
blue. It really doesn't matter. We don't
Fine,
have,
let it go.
have
Okay.
like I
It was an
remember when I
issue
was doing
back in
my
the
law.
day, but
Well, there is a whole bunch of things with that, right? So the thing is with blue ink, it will transfer easier, so people can steal your signature. So you'll see a lot of celebrities will only sign stuff with a black permanent marker,
mhm,
not a blue one, because the blue stays wet longer and can be copied and transferred over, and people can steal
to
their
other
signatures, right?
pieces. I got you. Yep.
So, and then some people want to sign with blue so that way they can see the signature on the document forms. So right now, blue or black, right? It really doesn't
Okay.
matter.
Yep. I hear
And
you.
yeah,
Well, that was a long time ago, but they just popped up in my head. A lot of things pop up in my head, Ben. I just, it's my job,
but
I guess,
you'll
to.
be amazed that the ink color may be the one thing that delays someone from signing the thing, right? Because they've heard of a thought, or they knew, oh well, I've only got blue pens, I haven't got black pens.
That's true. Yeah.
Or my kids only have rainbow colored pens. You know what? And like I couldn't find a black pen, so I didn't. I'm just sign it. Just
Get it
sign the
going.
damn form.
Well, we're about to wrap up here. I mean, we talked a little bit. What is your website?
Automatedtaxcredits.com. Really simple. Automatedtaxcredits.com, because we're the only company helping you automate and do stuff yourself with the IRS. Our goal is to provide the world's best do-it-yourself or done with you tax remediation solution.
And that's the best way to get a hold of you, I assume.
Yep,
Through that website.
automatedtaxcredits.com. And if you've got questions they want to email, it's just help@automatedtaxcredits.com, or jump on the website. There's a live chat there. You can submit your questions there, and we'll be more than happy to answer any question you have.
Um, Not to get into details on the price, but is it based on amount of credits or is it just a flat fee?
We do flat fee. So unlike a lot of our competitors, we do flat fee. We've got training from former IRS agents that we've had created specifically to help people. Starts at $9. Online training that explains exactly how you can do stuff yourself. You don't have to go spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get this type of stuff from someone, but for $9. We've got tools that are usually around the $97 mark. So literally we've built our own, what we call our form wizards or form AIs, that instead of you having to sit there and going, how the hell do I fill out this form? We've simplified every question and we ask it to you in plain English that a 4-year-old would be able to understand, right? So,
Yep.
and then it fills it all in for you. And they start at like $97, and we've got bundles of stuff that are usually under $500.
Gotcha. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, whatever, the government takes our taxes for whatever reason, and I don't believe they always use them properly. But you might as well get some back and use it to your benefit because it's legal and that's what the tax codes allow. So go to automatedtaxcredits.com, get a hold of Ben or whoever else is on that line, learn from the best. And Ben, thank you for your time today.
My pleasure, sir. It's a great thing. And if I can do anything else to help you or your listeners, let me know.
I appreciate that. As always, you can go to titanstail.com, find Ben and all the other great guests on our directory. And if you want to get hold of me, Chris Gilman, you can go to Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Look for Chris Gilman. And thank you guys. Ben, you have a great day.
Pleasure. Thank you, sir.